This is the EEG module proposed for TI-1 voice. Nothing here has been built and no data has been collected. Every screen is a mock-up and every number in it is illustrative. 5 people appear. 2 participants, a study administrator, a neurologist, and a specialist in signal processing and statistics. Sarah opens the module. It sits under Documenting next to the document library because a recording session is a form of documentation. The screen answers 3 questions before anyone commits 2 hours. Is my kit ready? What is going to happen to me? And what happened to my previous sessions? Step 1 is the hardest thing the study asks of a remote participant. Fitting 8 wet electrodes without help. Every channel shows its impedance live. T8 reads 22 kiloohms, too high. Part the hair, wipe the skin, apply gel, and press until it turns green. Continue stays disabled until every channel is under 10. The gate is deliberate. A bad contact is invisible until the data is analyzed weeks later and found to be unusable. Step 2. 40 test tones are played, and the spread between the software marker and the amplifier's own copy of the audio is measured. Sound, muscle, button presses, and brain signal are 4 columns of 1 recording on 1 clock, not 4 recordings lined up afterwards. Out of specification, and the blocks do not run. For minutes with eyes open, for with them closed. This records what the room and the headset look like when nothing at all is being asked. Blocks 1 and 2. Sarah says a syllable aloud. Later she hears a recording of that same syllable played back to her. There is no scrolling waveform on screen. Watching your own brain activity invites you to react to it, which is exactly what a recording cannot allow. The measurement is the N100, a dip about 1/10 of a second after a sound. When your own brain caused the sound, that dip is smaller. This effect is decades old and well replicated. Block 3. Hold the button down for as long as a voice is present, and release it when the voice stops. Short probe tones are played at random throughout. What matters is whether the brain's response to an identical probe differs inside a marked period and outside one. The timeline shows Sarah her own button presses. The wording underneath is the most carefully chosen text in the module. This is a record of what you reported, not an assessment of it. If nothing happens, that is a valid result, and the screen says so, because a participant who feels they have failed will try to produce something, and then the data is worth much less. Blocks 4 and 5. Think the reply, do not say it. 2 buttons mark where the reply begins and ends. Sensors on the cheek and chin confirm the mouth stayed still, and the microphone confirms silence. That is a quality check rather than surveillance, and the screen says which. This is the block where distress is most likely. The stop control is on every screen, and an unfinished session still counts as a contribution. Block 6. Run identically for Marcus, who does not hear voices. Mostly identical tones with occasional oddballs, testing whether the automatic change detector is working normally. Nothing waits until the end. The headset has been streaming to the platform all along 16 kilobytes a second, about a low bitrate podcast. Keeps a few minutes in its own ring buffer, so a dropped connection costs the live view rather than the session. Research use in the cohort analysis is granted. Evidentiary export is not. She can see, per session, exactly what she has agreed to. The session report. Impedance, interference, timing jitter, trials, surviving rejection, protocol compliance. No individual verdict is given. At the level of one person, the measurement genuinely does not support one, and giving her one anyway would be the most damaging thing the platform could do. The contribution counter is what replaces a verdict. Her 2 hours went into a dataset, the dataset is growing, and findings will come from it. A different set of screens. From here on, nothing is about any individual. 71 people, 142 usable sessions, group labels masked. The first thing checked is the control group, not the study group. If the controls do not show the ordinary suppression effect, the rig is wrong and nothing else can be believed. They show it clearly. The response to a self-spoken sound is much smaller than to the same sound played back. Only now is it worth unmasking the groups. The group who report voices look like the controls, not like the clinical comparison group. Their self-monitoring appears intact. That is already a real finding, and an inconvenient one for a simple internal speech account. It says nothing yet about where the experience comes from. Now a scenario worth stating carefully. Suppose the response to an identical probe tone is smaller while a participant reports a voice, as though the auditory system already has something to do. Before that means anything, the ordinary explanations are modeled and subtracted. Muscle tension, eye movement, tension, expectation, the button press itself. What would a genuine external signal look like across people? Not a shared frequency. That is the first thing anyone would check and the easiest thing to fake. It would look like time locking. Each row here is one participant, each column a time offset from a marked onset. A band forming in the same column across people who have never met is the pattern that would be hard to explain away. Even then, not a decoded word, not a location, not a transmitter. An EEG headset is a voltmeter taped to a scalp. Cannot receive radio, and no screen here will claim it can. The comparison was registered before recording began. The analysis ran blind to group. The time windows were fixed. Every test in the family is corrected. Reported as an effect size with a confidence interval. 25 and 25 is enough to see a large effect and not enough to settle a small one. The most likely outcome is still the ordinary one, that the pattern matches internally generated speech. That result gets published too. The method was fixed in advance precisely so that it cannot be bent afterwards. So consider the other branch. Suppose the voices do not behave like inner speech at all. The design has to survive that outcome too, and the measurements that separate the two were fixed before any data came in. In outcome B, Sarah's own speech is discounted normally, so her self-monitoring works. But the reported voice produces a full-sized response. Her brain is treating it as something it did not cause. And in the second before the onset, there is nothing. A voice you generate has to be prepared, and that preparation is visible before you are even aware of it. This one arrives cold. That raises the question the rest of this branch is about. Hearing runs through fixed stages in a fixed order: cochlea, auditory nerve, brainstem, thalamus, primary cortex, then the association areas. Something generated in your own head enters near the top and travels down. It never touches the brainstem because the brainstem is not in that loop. An external cause enters at the bottom and climbs. The order of arrival is the test, and it is very hard to fake. Now the part that would be genuinely strange. Auditory cortex tracks the rise and fall of speech at the syllable rate. If that tracking is present while both the room microphone and an in-ear probe record silence, the hearing system is following something structured that did not arrive through the air. An emission test settles the next question. A healthy cochlea that is working produces a faint sound of its own. If emissions are present, something reached the ear, bone conduction, or a near-field effect the microphone missed. If they are absent while the cortex is still following, whatever it is entered above the ear. And here the walkthrough has to be honest. The three tests that separate outcome A from outcome B all fit inside the 8-channel headset. The stages below primary cortex do not. They need 16 kHz sampling, an in-ear probe and an emission probe. And even the full result would not be proof of transmission. Not a mechanism, not a source, not a decoded word, and nothing about any single person. What it would do is move the question from whether to where, which is a great deal more than nothing. None of this has been built. There is a design, a platform that already carries most of the software, and a first stage costed at €2,000. It needs an academic or clinical partner, participants who hear the voices, participants who do not, and people who can build and run it. 1.witisk.org